anybody who has not stood on a very powerful light for an extended period of time, that can get rather uncomfortable.
Yes, it's hot
Um, yeah,
in all the
and
wrong areas.
yeah, exactly.
What's up, dude? I I hate to start off things this way. We're gonna
Yeah,
get into some really cool stuff here, but again, I think that we should just spend a minute here real quick and just, give homage to the Prince of Darkness. We just found out the news a little while ago that
yeah.
Ozzy Osbourne passed away today, which obviously you're not coming to a podcast to get your hot news, but so I'm if this is where you're getting it, it's probably been a while now, but yeah, no, it was sad day.
Very much so.
Hats off to Ozzy and their family and our
Yeah,
prayers for him. So um yeah, man, he's the
for sure.
king, king of what we did and do.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And I think, um, and this goes back, prior to kind of the new metal stuff. But I mean, he helped bands.
correct.
He's one of the few people in kind of at that level, that came back for some of the smaller bands. Metallica being kind of the first one, so to speak. But I mean, he did it
Right.
with Motley back in the '80s too. But it's the first time I saw Korn or the Deftones
Right. Yeah, I
was
mean,
with Ozzy.
ostensibly, I mean, I don't think that especially new metal would have been what it was if it wasn't for the Osbournes. I mean, Jack
Yeah.
was coming to
Mhm.
Sharon and Ozzy and saying, "You guys got to check this band out, check this
Yeah.
band out." And they're
Yeah.
like, "I don't get it," and then put them up on stage and boom, they blow up. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's
Geez, then you had
just
Ozfest, and it
yes,
was all of those bands. And I mean, the Ozfest tours, I mean, that probably had a bigger impact on this genre than
oh
anything
yeah,
else.
yeah, I
Anything else.
yeah. When I think of like not actual bands, but I think of like the new metal movement or whatever, I think of two large impacts, one being Ozfest and the other one being Ross Robinson. And I
Yeah.
think that those two, if they
Hmm.
never existed, it would have been a whole different world.
Yeah.
But
Completely different ball game.
yeah, so
Yeah.
either
It
way,
was it was sad. And it
yeah,
it does bring something up, as and I was thinking about this earlier too. And I was looking at social media, and it was just, every post was about Ozzy.
yeah,
And I'm like, oh man, that's great. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, should I post something? And I kind of thought about it further, and I'm like, okay, who is posting stuff about this for kind of their own gain, and who is like, it's a
with capital
genuine kind of
time.
condolence. This man had a profound impact on my life and my career. And when I kind of thought about it that way, you can see who's doing what. And it
Yes.
was just kind of too bad. And I'm like, you know what? Give it a day or two.
Yeah.
You don't need to post immediately,
Right.
And it was people. I don't know for a fact, but I'm going to make an assumption here, but it's probably a safe one. They're Googling Ozzy Osbourne, pulling an image that they liked, and then putting it on their social media. So number one, it's content you didn't create. And, there was only one person who I've played with in my past. We don't speak much anymore, but he played, like, he pulled out his guitar, and like that I get. That
Yeah.
I feel is incredibly appropriate. But to just Google an image and then, RIP, broken heart emoji, that to me felt like really disingenuous. Not that they're not, you know,
Sure. Everybody's
you know,
impacted in a way.
impacted by it,
Yeah.
but it just felt like, I don't know. I get
You
weird about that stuff.
yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I think that's the one of the main parts of the internet in general that I hate.
Yeah.
It's just
Agreed.
everybody likes to share in the
Yeah.
whatever it is
Mhm.
that's traveling around through the
Yeah.
interwebs, and especially when again like Ozzy dying, it's like I'm not going to post on there. It's like we'll talk, like we'll
Yeah.
share whatever me and my friends or whatever and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, to be like try to be a part of it is just
Right.
it's gross.
Yeah.
But
And I thought, and maybe, with some time pass, maybe I'll do something, guitar
sure,
or something.
yeah,
And that it's like, okay, that I get, but to just Google, pull an image, screenshot it,
yeah,
RIP, or, you know, trying to break the news to people. It's like,
yeah,
yeah, your social media, it feels forced. It feels like you're trying to hit your social media numbers. And it
yeah.
felt really slimy to me. But then again, it's social media. What doesn't feel slimy
Yeah.
about it?
Amen. Amen.
But yeah, it definitely sad. Would be probably lying if I said I didn't really see it coming. He did
Oh,
not
of course.
look
Yeah. But
very healthy at the show a couple weeks ago.
right.
And so I mean,
Yeah.
I
But
hate to say that, but
yeah, no, but I mean, honestly, yeah, he didn't look the best, but did I think he was like dying?
right.
I no,
Exactly.
I would have gave him at least another year or two or something like that,
Yeah.
based on what he looked like. But
Yeah.
like what we talked about offline, though, I mean, it was like I just see it as, he literally lived to perform. And I
Yeah.
think, it's kind of like you hear about that all the time where like, your grandma and grandpa or something like that, been married for
Hmm.
75 years and then
Yeah.
grandma dies and then grandpa dies that day or a couple days later, something like
Shortly
that from a
after.
broken heart,
Yep.
and I really think that that was the case here with Ozzy. I
It's a
think
thing. Yeah.
he lived to perform and it was just a heartbreak for him that he couldn't do it
Yeah.
anymore. And I think that
Yeah.
was his purpose and, being a husband and a father and stuff like that, but I just think that it was the thing that just kept him going. Because if you think about it, dude, that guy had been through so much physical stuff.
Yeah.
How he was still alive to 76 blows my mind, you know.
Well, yeah, there's all that. Yeah. He,
So
he lived hard, you know.
he lived
He
hard.
he definitely lived the Hunter S. Thompson type of philosophy,
Yes. Yes.
and um but it's definitely a huge loss for music and
Yeah,
especially hard rock and definitely metal.
for
So,
sure. So,
yeah, but
anyways, on that
yeah,
note, RIP Ozzy and thoughts and
yeah.
prayers to the
I mean,
family. So,
absolutely. And the first thing I thought of, was I wonder how Zach's doing,
right. Yeah,
because
exactly.
him and Zach were incredibly close,
Really tight. Yeah.
and I haven't seen anything on social media or anything like that, but that was one of the first things I thought,
Yeah.
after I was like, oh my god, it's like, oh, I wonder how Zach is.
Yeah, because he was kind of like his surrogate, well, family, I mean,
Yeah,
it's like he calls
yeah,
Sharon mom, and
hmm,
so,
yeah,
but he always had stories for days about Ozzy
mm,
and stuff. I
yeah.
love hearing his interviews, and he'd
Oh
share
yeah,
just funny, like I was watching this one the other day and he was talking about, I'm going to mess this up a little bit because I wasn't paying attention to memorize it, but they were playing a show together and they were, Ozzy was supposed to be clean at the time and they showed up to this place and it was a clean place and then Zach, I guess, always carried beer with him everywhere they went just because you never know
yeah,
when you are showing up to a clean venue
right.
and so he had some beers with him and stuff and then like I think they like got done after the show and Ozzy came up and he's like Zach, you got a cold one? And he's like, yeah, I do. And he's like, meet me in the bathroom in 2 minutes. He's like, all right. So Zach goes in the bathroom and then Ozzy comes in and sits in the stall next to him and he hands the beer underneath the stall and you hear him and he just glug 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 glug. Oh, all right, Zach, he'll see you at the hotel. He just leaves. It's like here's the Prince of Darkness having a
Right.
cold beer in a bathroom.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just
Oh,
awesome. But
yeah.
anyways,
Yeah. He.
so with that, kind of a weird segue, but
Yeah.
let's
Mm,
move into what we're going to talk about today. So we are going to
yeah.
talk about I dare I say underground kind of new metal band.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
fun.
see. I see what you did there.
I see. Yeah,
So
there you go.
yeah. So for those who have been listening, we'd like to kind of take some records that we think were somewhat influential from the time period and kind of do a deeper dive around circumstances and different things that were surrounding the record. And this particular record, it's a weird one, and I did not know it was as popular as it apparently was. And that record is the Art of Rebellion by the Union Underground. And I actually was kind of going through my CDs. For those who don't know what a CD is, that's what they used to put music on way back when. But I found the CD cover. I
Nice,
actually found the cover. Um, so, and their picture on the back. We'll get into that, I'm sure.
fun.
But I wanted to talk about this record because I think that I think this was a tipping point, so to speak, in the genre. I think this is when the labels started to figure out they could make some money with it, with kind of that new
100%.
metal sound.
100%.
And as long as they could tweak it just enough to be different.
Yeah.
So, so that's why I wanted to chat through this record. And I also like to talk through kind of their signing story,
Yeah.
because I think that that's, maybe a little bit selfish for me, but I like to know how bands made it to that level, because as a musician, I'm always curious, because there's no one way to do it, or I would have done it.
Right.
And theirs, ironically enough, is the way we were always told to do it.
Nice.
So they self-produced a record. They're from San Antonio, Texas. They self-produced a record and they sold about 5,000 copies.
Okay.
And I remember that number specifically being told to me.
Okay.
Sell 5,000. So there had to
Yes.
be, not that I didn't believe the people who were involved with us, but
Sure.
apparently there was something there to the 5,000 number, because they did
Okay.
it. And they got the attention of some folks in LA, who got them in front of a label. Bing, bang, boom. They get signed to who did they get signed to? Portrait, which was a
Oh,
Columbia
yeah.
hard rock
Yep.
imprint. And I found the self-produced album on YouTube.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah. And after listening through it, it occurred to me what they did. So if you listen to that record, or that self-produced record, it's very hair metal-y,
Oh,
if
is
that
it
makes sense.
really?
And
Interesting.
having heard that, this record makes a lot more sense to me now,
Oh, really? Okay.
because you can
I'm
see
tweaking. This is cool.
where they started to kind of say, okay, we can make this a little more new metal kind of thing,
Sure.
and then leave the hair metal kind of thing here, and then
You're
kind of go
kidding
back and
me.
forth in between two. And I was like, wow, okay, I see what they did. Because there was a very popular kind of methodology. I don't know if it was actually in print by then, but there's certain books that have been written about this. But to make a hit, quote unquote, you want it to be familiar enough to be, so the listener is comfortable, but different enough to where it's new. So
Sure.
people were listing out different characteristics, and then they were kind of tweaking a couple of them. So it was still somewhat safe for the listener, but new enough to where they would be interested. And that's exactly what happened here. Not that it isn't good, because I do like this record for the most part. And but you could tell that's kind of what they were doing.
That is so cool.
Isn't
Like,
that wild?
that is wild. But it explains so much though. Like even like I remember all of that moment, like right before, because obviously I think we know who we're talking about here, but well, we won't name names, but the person that kind of helped launch them and everything, um, who was a pivotal part of all of our situation
Mm-hmm.
as well. But
Yeah.
either which way, I just remember the what would you call it? Just the heat coming off this band, and it felt I don't want to say fake. I don't want to say fake because they're definitely talented. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
didn't feel like these were like this was a garage band that was put together,
Mm-hmm.
5 years ago, and here they're finally making it. And this is what they started from, and this is where they're at.
Right.
I mean, it felt totally produced, and you could just feel it, it just wasn't genuine, and nothing against the band or the record,
Yeah.
like you said. I like the record for the most part, like you
Yeah.
said, but and I thought they were great, nice guys and everything. I have nothing against them or whatever, but it was just like, what, wait, what,
Right.
and even the song that made them so popular was to me like you read through the lyrics and I'm going, this is exactly what I'm feeling about you,
Yeah.
with this, just like you guys are just
Yeah.
trying to be a rock star, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like, so with that, are you being amphibious? Are you being a
Right.
chameleon?
Yeah.
And it turns out from what you're saying, a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. To a certain extent. And I may have said the title of the record wrong. It's an education in rebellion, and I think I said it art of rebellion or something. Not important, but
We're getting old.
um,
It's all right.
yeah, I literally bought this 20 some odd years ago.
There you go.
That's how much I listened to it. Um, but yeah, so it was interesting because the couple of the guys, they owned their own studio in San Antonio, and they recorded a lot of this record there. So kind of going to the production quality of the record, I wasn't a huge fan of it. I thought, coming from a guitar player background, the guitar tone to me needed some help. Probably
Okay.
wasn't my favorite.
Okay, elaborate on that. So why? Like what were you hearing
Well,
or not hearing?
it seemed just overall seemed very compressed. There didn't seem to be a whole
Okay.
lot of oomph behind it.
Okay. Like it was
And
behind in the mix is what you're saying, or not
no, not
layered enough,
necessarily.
or
Just the tone itself.
okay,
I don't
tonal.
think it was
Yeah.
dialed in. It was very safe, we'll say. He wasn't
Yeah.
pushing anything. It was very compressed. It was very kind of put into a box,
Okay.
and it doesn't breathe. And we've talked about that before too, and kind of a soundscape. You want your tone to breathe a little bit, because if you
Right.
don't, everything feels like it's constricted. You want it to feel open enough to where it's supposed to live. But
Yeah.
this just feels really kind of smushed into the mix. And that's just kind of the more aggressive tones. He's got kind of the clean tone and all that, but it's all super compressed.
Yeah.
And when you're self-producing, like I think they were left to do for the most part, you can get inside your own head enough to where you don't hear those things anymore. And they did bring in somebody. They brought in Ulrich Wild to produce the record. I don't know at what point he came into the picture. And his name should be familiar for most who are kind of keeping score. His name is on a lot of records from this era, a lot of
Sure.
records, whether it was mixing, producing, engineering. Hyper talented guy. But yeah, for some reason, the guitar tone just didn't do much for me, and I think the overall sound of the record didn't do much for me. The song, not to say the songs weren't good, because I do
Right.
enjoy them, but from a pure production standpoint, I was not a super fan of it. But
Interesting.
they did take it out of Texas, and the production, and moved it to LA. They recorded some in LA at NRG in North Hollywood, which is a pretty
Okay.
famous studio,
Yep.
especially for this era of music.
Yeah, for sure.
um, Follow the Leader,
Yep.
The first Evanescence record, Significant Other, all these records were done there.
Right.
So it was a very, very popular studio at the time. But yeah.
Yeah. But again, hats off to them though. I mean, they did some wild stuff. And okay, so but you were saying though, like you were surprised at how many records actually sold.
Yeah.
So what was that number? Or
Of the
am I cutting in on what?
no. They sold just north of 400,000
Oh, really? Wow.
on this record. Yeah. Which, again, did not think that it was that successful. And that's only kind of congealing for me now, because they're doing an anniversary tour with Spineshank.
Oh, sure.
Spineshank is doing The Height of Callousness, and Union Underground is doing this record, and the Union Underground is getting top billing, which blew my mind.
Weird.
And I'm like, and I was at a show last night, and they're playing that same venue here in a couple of weeks, and sure enough, everything said the Union Underground, no mention of Spineshank.
That's really weird. Okay,
Right?
so okay, that blows my mind. And so okay, but
Yeah.
that also kind of leads me into something that I was a part of on the internet. Or I don't like to argue on the internet. I usually don't even comment and stuff, but I think it might have been Spine Shanks, or I don't remember. It was maybe some just some Facebook page. I don't remember which one it was. And they were showing Spine Shank's first show together since 12 years, all this other stuff. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and then like, yeah, that's what it was. It was like some new metal page or something like that, or heavy metal page. Anyways,
Yeah.
so a bunch of people were like, who the hell are these guys anyways? Why are you posting this? I'm going, dude, this is spine shank. What do you talk about? Who
Yeah.
the hell are these guys?
Yeah.
Why are you even on this
Right.
page then if you don't know who the hell spine shank is?
Right.
And then of course everybody was ragging on Johnny Santos sounding different. And I'm going,
Well,
man, okay, think about it for a second. He's not 22 years old anymore. Your
exactly.
voice naturally just continues to drop all the way, through the years,
Right.
especially if you're constantly wrecking it by screaming and stuff. I mean, listen to Phil Anselmo, for example. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
he sounds like he's gargling glass and gravel at the same time.
Yeah.
And then, but they're like, oh, it doesn't even sound like him on stage anymore. I'm going, listen to Phil. I mean, he can hit the
Yeah.
notes and stuff, but he ain't
Hmm.
doing Cowboys
Right.
from Hell like he did Cowboys from Hell,
No.
I mean, and so to rag on the poor guy, it's like,
Yeah.
and then plus he's been out of it for a long time,
Right.
and it's like give him a minute, but
For
either which
sure.
way. But yeah, that's
It's
shocking about Union
yeah.
Underground though.
And
Like
just
being
real
that,
quick to
yeah, go
hit
ahead.
on that a little bit, as you get older, like you said, your voice kind of
Yeah.
I don't want to say it degrades because that doesn't feel right. But it just naturally gets lower. And a really good example of this is Dave Mustaine.
Yeah.
And what Megadeth has done is they have drop tuned some of their songs
Yes.
so he can sing in key
A lot of
easier.
bands do that. Yeah.
Right. So that's a real thing. So, it seems pretty, ignorant to comment on a vocalist,
Yeah.
and kind of say that, especially given how much time has passed. And I mean, the record, The Heights of Callousness is what, 20 years old as a
Yeah.
actually both of these records are 25 years old. Because they were both released in 2000. At least
Yeah.
this one was. Height of Callousness might be younger, but even so, I mean, that's really not fair. But I can see when you're listening to a record and then you go to a show and you see him and it sounds different. Like I
Yeah.
get that math, but again, providing that's why I feel like providing context is so important. You know, so
Yeah, it does. And I think like what you're saying, it is but to kind of come back to Johnny Santos, so again, for you know, the thing that I think that obviously you have the guitar background, so you're going to think
yeah,
differently. I'm a vocalist and a drummer and stuff, so that's why I tend to turn towards. I'm gonna get this down one of these days. I'm sorry, I'm speaking. Anyways, but my point is like I kind of felt like Johnny was his voice was very different, and he had like I don't want to say it, like it was a higher pitched, young sounding voice,
yeah,
and so it would be almost weird to hear him now pushing 50 and
hmm,
have that young sounding voice. You know what I'm
right,
saying? So it's like,
yeah,
so when I heard it, I'm like, yeah, it doesn't sound like Johnny Santos from 25 years ago anymore.
yeah,
But it is a bit jarring because it's like these songs had his voice was such an instrument in those songs, and so it's like having your guitar all of a sudden be down tuned, and it's
right,
always been something else, and
yeah,
so I could see where people were coming from, but to say he sucked or he was garbage or whatever like that, it's like you're out of your mind,
right,
and it's like he's still got it. He just sounds different, and
right.
that's tough, especially for singers, man. That's tough,
Yeah, I mean that's a natural instrument that you
Right.
guys have, and years of doing that style of music,
Yeah.
it takes a toll on your vocal cords,
Oh yeah.
and um, I guess I don't want to say science has progressed, but I think we know more now about how your vocal cords work and how you can actually make some of those sounds
Sure.
safely than we did then,
Oh, big time. Oh, big
and
time. Yeah. When
right,
I was
yeah,
doing it, oh, it was there was no science behind it. It was you freaking just you go until
you
it's
were just
almost
yelling.
bleeding. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
just
you're just
yelling.
yelling.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
and that's why there was such mad respect in our era of, and I don't say this to be braggadocious or anything, but for the
Yeah.
vocalists who could sing and scream, and do that for 45 minutes or longer all in one shot, and
Mhm.
because it pays a toll, man. It was, I
Yeah.
mean, you remember, I mean, it was
Oh yeah.
like I'd get done with the show and I'd be like, you got to give me like 30
Yeah.
minutes. It's
Yeah.
like I'm not going to
Yeah.
be able to make any sound here. And there's a couple of shows where it'd give out, probably five,
Oh
six
yeah.
songs in. I'm like, I'm screwed,
I'm done. Yeah.
but nowadays it's like you hear like Alex Terrible or whatever,
Yeah.
and
Will Ramos.
yeah, Will Ramos. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
and like those guys they'll belt out all this stuff
Yep.
and then they're just totally fine,
Yep.
because they've figured out, like you said, the science on how to utilize a vocal fry in six
Hmm.
different ways rather than,
Yeah.
but that also kind of comes down to the point though, is like for like a Johnny Santos, like again, screaming is, like the way that I scream was you are adding volume to a vocal fry,
Yeah.
and but does tend to wreck your voice, and
Sure.
but the thing is like your level. So like my scream is a little bit lower than say Johnny Santos because I obviously have a naturally deeper voice, but the
Right.
thing is like where your level is on, say I don't want to give like a note or whatever, but say you start your vocal fry naturally comes in at a G, and that's where you're going to start hitting, almost like it's a weird analogy, but Christina Aguilera, for example, she's got a certain note that she just loves to peg all the time.
Right.
And because she knows that her vocal cords hit it perfectly every single time.
Hmm.
Well, just same thing with like a vocal fry. It's you have this certain level where it starts coming naturally, and then you add volume to that. Well, through the years, 25 years later, whatever, that vocal fry note is going to lower because your cords are looser now. And so now it's no longer a G. Maybe it's a B or something, I don't know.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
but, yeah, I don't know. We are on a weird tangent. I'm sorry.
No, no, that's interesting because it's and I think it's good to talk about it and get it out there because
Yeah.
as we start to see a lot of these bands start to do this reunion kind of anniversary thing from this time period, the vocals are going to be different.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just are. And I
Exactly.
think
And
people
it's
should be
exciting though
prepared
too
for
to kind of
that.
see, a kind of almost like a new spin on it,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I don't know, it's fun. I think
Yeah.
uh, especially with the Union Underground. I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely, you could always tell they're from Texas, and I thought that was kind of
Oh
cool.
yeah.
Um but yeah, I mean that the Turn Me On Mr. Deadman song, I mean that doesn't surprise me because I think they might have been on some video games or wrestling or something like that
Yeah.
too, and I
Yeah.
think that's probably what helped propel them and stuff.
Probably.
So it shocks me at how many records they sold, but it doesn't shock me. But I really feel like
Yeah.
they're again a flash in a pan.
It
Like
was quick.
yeah, it was
It
real
was a
quick.
one and done
Yep.
thing. To be fair, I mean, Spinechank was 3 and out, or was it
Yeah.
4? No, it was 4.
Yeah.
They did, yeah, I think it was 4 before they split. But yeah, it's this one was just it was an interesting kind of time marker, in the evolution of this particular genre. It came out in July of 2000, and yeah, like you mentioned, there was a lot of people behind this and pushing the band and the record, thinking that they were gonna be the next big thing.
Right.
And they, not to say they didn't have the songs to do it. I think, it may have been a little bit of the attitude that kind of held them back.
Oh, sure.
And, I say that because I have a story to tell,
Sure.
ironically enough about it. So, my band at the time, we got the opportunity to open a number of shows of theirs before they went to tour with Manson, because after they did a quick headlining tour, Manson heard them in a strip club and booked him for his tour to open his tour.
Nice.
And I think that was fall of 2000, I believe. And so we got booked on a couple shows to help support the Union Underground, and I remember it vividly because it was one of the more quote rock star experiences of my life
Okay.
in career. And so we pull up to the venue. Our load in, I think it was at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, day of show, and they were already there. Their stage was already built, and they had already checked, and they were nowhere to be found. It's like, okay,
Interesting.
couldn't find anybody, none of their team, nobody, not even a merch person. And so we go in and we get set up, we do what we need to do. And I walked on stage and I was looking around, and they had so much gear and kind of like show stuff, different DIY like
Sure.
lighting rigs and things like that. And I'm like, okay, on one hand I can relate because we had a lot of DIY type of stuff in terms of lighting and show build and things. And I'm like, where are we going to put all this stuff? So by the time we got everything built and done, I had maybe a 2x2 space to perform in. I was very much kind of, in
Yeah.
that box, couldn't move. And, we all, like us and them both, we had kind of front of stage, ours were box lights, right? And
Right.
you'd step up on top of them, they'd light up, and hey, yeah, cool. And they had some light banks that I couldn't really figure out what they were, but they were built with 2x4s, so they were clearly DIY.
Sure.
And so we sound check, and I believe that first show may have sold out. And I was like, wow, these guys are that big. Okay. And we play great, everything's great, crowd was great. And we got everything off. We go and do all of the stuff that we do, after show. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go in and watch them. We had merch coverage, so I'm gonna go watch them. So I went and I got a cocktail and sat down, and their set time rolled around, and I knew what it was because I saw the day sheet. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, where are they at? 5 minutes, past the time goes by, 10 minutes goes by. I'm like, did we mess something up on stage? Did I break
Right.
something by accident? Like, somebody gets on a PA mic. I don't remember if it was their tour manager or a monitor guy, or I don't remember who it was, but he gets on a mic and he says, the Union Underground will not go on until they get weed. And
That's awesome.
I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. You can't be serious right
That's
now.
great.
And it was just dead silent. House lights were already down. Like, people are waiting for this intro music to start. Maybe 10 minutes goes by from my recollection, and the guy on the mic just goes, thank you. I'm like, okay, somebody produced it.
Somebody,
Great.
yeah.
Hurry up and let's get this show on the road, because now I'm just kind of annoyed. I'm like, that's,
Right.
I mean, I kind of get it, I guess, but that's a pretty rock star move for,
Yeah.
your album just coming out. It is a
Jeez.
headlining show and everything, but I get it. So about, I don't know, 15 minutes later ish, their intro music kicks in because they kept the house lights down. So you didn't
Oh,
know like what was happening because they were trying to keep people in the venue
right, right,
because they didn't
right.
want anybody to leave thinking, oh, he's going to pull an axle and not go on.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so 15 minutes or so goes by, and their intro music kicks in, and okay, finally. And so they, intro music kicks on, and the rest of the band, gets up there, the guitar player and bass player and drummer, and they start to do the fanfare thing in the beginning. And then Bryan the singer kind of walks in and jumps up on stage, and they kick into the first song. And at this point he's just kind of in front of the drums, kind of jumping around or whatever. And then when he goes to start singing, he jumps up on one of these light banks, and it lights him up like a Christmas tree, right? For a
Sure.
really bad analogy, but it lights him up. And for anybody who has not stood on a very powerful light for an extended period of time, that can get rather uncomfortable.
Yes. It's hot
Yeah.
in all the
And
wrong areas.
exactly. And I'm like, how is it? Because he would just stand on like the entire
Yeah.
time. He would, like, if he was singing to the mic, he was on that light bank. And I'm like, what is in there?
Yeah.
Like, I have to know like what he's standing on because, like I said, it can get painful. And so I kind of got to a point where I could see on stage, and it was, I don't remember the size, maybe 3 foot by 2 feet, 4 feet by 2 feet. It was car headlights
Oh,
all run
really?
together. And I don't know if there was a switch somewhere or if it was pressure sensitive, but every time he would step on it, it would light him up. And I'm like, man, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Why did I not think of that? And I'm like, okay, I kind of have a whole new-ish level of respect. Like, they're kind of inching their way up there. And they keep playing. And I had read some of the press around the record when I bought it. Just, back when record stores were kind of the hangout. And a lot of the reviews around this record were, they were kind of making fun of the rock star thing and,
Sure.
drugs and the junkie thing. And I'm like, maybe they were serious. Maybe they're not making fun of it. Maybe they
Right.
were really serious given what happened, but after watching them play, I'm like, okay, I get it. The live show definitely better than the record in my opinion,
Sure.
but it was certainly a weird experience having been a part of the show. And then the next couple shows, like I knew what to expect, so it wasn't really a big deal.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Interesting.
that's story time about the Union Underground. But yeah, it was an interesting experience. And then not long after that, they got the Manson tour and they were
Right.
off, and then the record started to do fairly well. And then as quickly as that happened, they were gone.
Yeah. Well, you did hit on something that I was gonna say is like, they were good live. I thought that
Yeah,
they brought a lot of energy and stuff. And so and that's the thing. I think, I I only talked to I don't remember the names, but I talked to the guitarist once and the singer once. And it was like
yeah,
after their show when they played at the Ranch Bowl and stuff. And they were
yeah,
pretty down to earth. You could kind of tell this was before they were signed even.
yeah,
And it was funny because they actually like in the middle of the show, there was maybe 100 people at the show. That was it. It was not that big
yeah.
of an event. And I just remember they threw out tapes into the crowd. And I'm like,
Really?
what the hell? I was like, dude, I haven't seen tapes in years,
Wow.
and I just thought that was wild. So when you're talking about, them being almost like hair metal,
Yeah,
and then, I'm like, well, that, it kind of makes sense. I think that they were, coming from that genre a little bit or that era of time.
yeah,
But no, I will say, like, I was actually thoroughly impressed with their live show, and I was like,
yeah,
okay, these guys are gonna do something. You could just
yeah,
feel the energy. I was like, they got something here. But again, like,
yeah.
to your point though, there are some bands that you just can't capture them in a studio,
Right.
and there's something with just the energy that they bring live. That whether it's visual or just their chemistry live
Yeah.
together or something like that, it adds another element, that you
Yeah.
just cannot record.
Right. And I think that speaks to the importance of live music
Yeah,
instead of just, listening to it and streaming it. And because it is a whole different energy. And when
100%.
it can't be replicated. As recording artists, we try our best to do that, but
Right.
it's impossible. Because it's when you're in a studio, you're hyper focused on getting everything quote album perfect.
Yeah,
And when you're playing live, you're more focused on that energy.
sure.
And if you flub a note, if you miss something, it's not a big deal,
Right.
to most of us.
No, yeah, agreed.
But yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's and I mean it charted. It was, it hit 130 on the Billboard Top 200.
Okay.
At one point that was as high as they got. Um Number 2 on Heat Seekers though,
Okay.
which
Yeah.
kind of makes sense,
Yeah.
especially if they got, a later kind of push by
Right.
WWE kind of thing.
Right. Right.
Um but I do think that there's some standout songs on here. You mentioned Turn Me On, Mr.
Yeah.
Deadman. South Texas Death Ride is really fun.
Yeah. It's a good song.
I do remember the song Drivel live. That was amazing live. So I'm kind of excited to see if they pull that
Pull it
off
out.
the same way.
Nice.
But what I did find out, and this is kind of, something you and I have chatted about too, it's not the original lineup.
Okay.
The only person from the original lineup that is touring this reunion is Bryan, the singer.
Oh,
It's a whole
really?
new band. Which
Interesting. Okay.
for me, it's kind of like, okay, I get what you're doing, but for me, it's like I kind of wanted to see the original
Right.
guys,
Yeah.
and for those, to kind of do a where are they now kind of a thing. I think what really may have been kind of the first nail in the coffin for the band was John Moyer, the bass player, leaving to join Disturbed,
Oh, sure.
and that happened not long after these tours were done.
Oh,
Um,
really? Okay.
where he auditioned and left for Disturbed, and
I
he's
do
been in
remember
Disturbed ever
hearing that.
since.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm.
He's been there ever
Well,
since.
good. Good for
Yeah,
him.
So it was definitely a good career decision.
Yeah. Yeah. Chasing the money for sure.
Yeah,
Yep.
well, I mean, as you know, a touring musician and recording artist,
Right.
it's like having a job, and if you can get a promotion, then
Well, that and you're
maybe worth
probably,
looking at.
I don't know those guys from Adam, but I mean, I've heard plenty of stories about, backstage, and so that's what I'm saying. A lot of the stuff what you're saying doesn't surprise me, with the
Yeah,
the weed and everything. They're clearly trying to be a rock star and
yeah,
or living that life to the fullest, and good for
yeah,
them. God bless them. But I would assume, well, maybe let me not say assume, but if you're trying not to live that life,
yeah.
yeah, it disturbs probably the safer play. David Draymond was not that guy.
No,
So it's like,
no,
let's
very
settle
much no.
down, let's write some music, let's take
Yeah,
this serious, be professionals, and
yeah,
you know, talk about the Holocaust and
yeah, yeah. Yeah, we
just
have our
joking.
stories
Yeah,
about
exactly.
David Draymond.
Yep.
But Brian, the singer, outside of doing the anniversary tour on this record, he had started another band with Will from Scrape at one
Oh,
point,
interesting.
and it was no disrespect, but very not good, and I don't
Oh,
recommend
really?
anyone to listen to it.
That's
Yeah,
what's the name of that band?
I don't even want to say.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you. I actually don't even remember.
Okay.
Um, but a quick Google search would get it done. But it's, yeah, I think I got maybe two songs into it and said, yeah, maybe not.
Yeah, no,
But,
really.
uh, but again, it's, everybody kind of went their separate ways. Pat, the guitar player, he
Yeah.
is in a band called, what is it called? Uh, Heaven Below is what his band's called.
Okay.
And but he toured with some hair metal folks, Lita Ford, Janie Lane, and his solo stuff. Rest in peace. So he kind of went in that direction for a hot minute. So that's can clearly see where that influence was, and then the drummer kind of gave it up and does some local stuff and
Huh.
does a lot with worship music and things like that. So definitely the four went in very different directions.
Yeah. Well, that definitely happens.
Yeah, for sure.
Cult to follow. Is that them?
No, it had something to do
No.
with fire.
Okay. Interesting.
It might be it. I'm gonna be honest with you, I really don't remember.
I'm really
But
intrigued now.
I remember it'll be on my Spotify. Let's see if I can find it for you. But I remember I hit play on it and I was like, oh no, oh
Oh
no.
no. And
Yeah.
that's what's funny though, because there's a good point to that though, because sometimes it's just a perfect chemical reaction of certain people to make something special. And you can
Okay.
have,
I
some of the
found
but
it.
nice, what is it?
It's called Into the Fire, and there is only two songs.
It's on Spotify.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out.
Spit You Out and From the Medicine.
Into the Fire.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's just go ahead and do this real quick. You know what? I am gonna pull this up and we are going to share
Dear.
this.
Yeah. The other one you mentioned, it may have been another band. I didn't want to go too deep into to what he was doing, but yeah. And again, I mean no disrespect to him,
No, 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 no.
but it
Yeah, no disrespect.
it seems, I mean, to be a perfect honest, it seems more watered down than the Union Underground.
That's funny. Let's see. It's playing, but
Oh
it's
yeah,
probably
there
not.
he is. Yeah, it's him.
I don't know why it's not playing.
Hmm. Oh well,
Interesting.
that's
Either
for the
which way.
best. It's for the best.
That's
I mean, if
that's
if any listeners are curious, do
go
so at
check that
your own
out.
risk.
That's
Can't
funny.
be held responsible for
We'll have
the
to check that
7 minutes of
out.
your life that you may have
That's fun. Well,
spent on
cool.
that.
Good
Yeah.
deal.
So yeah, yeah, weird tangent, but yeah, it's it's one of those things, and like I said, it's a career, and people try to make it that way. And
Sure.
when you get into it, your first band or your debut record, that's something like they always say you have a whole lifetime to work on it.
Right.
But your second one, you don't.
Yep. You got 10
You got to
minutes. Let's
turn it.
go.
You got to turn it
Yep.
around fast. And
Yep.
some people, they get a taste of kind of the industry and the lifestyle, and they want to capitalize on what's new
Right.
and what works and all that. And but anyway,
Well, and that's a good point because, I think of that. I was actually just having that discussion this weekend. So, like, definitely not new metal, but Pearl Jam, for example,
mm,
very, very talented musicians.
yeah,
But that first record is incredible, and
yeah,
I feel like that is the epitome of you have a lifetime, to write your first record
yeah,
because to me it's perfect. I mean, there's not a bad song on it. They're just
mm-mm,
so good.
yeah,
And but they just couldn't reproduce it,
yeah.
again,
I liked
very
verses, but you're
versus is
right.
good, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah,
it just
they fell off at Vitology for me. That's where.
yeah, exactly. And you can just kind of tell. It's like, and I think that it's
Yeah,
just as people get older,
yeah,
I say this all the time, is people just kind of lose that hunger. And
mhm,
it's like comedians, are the kind of the same way, right? And so when a comedian starts, they usually talk about just life experiences and they write down bits and stuff of things that are happening to them.
yeah,
But to stay fresh, they have to continue writing bits. And you get to a point where, if you're writing bits about family life and work and, being at, whatever, just everyday like grocery stores and stuff like that. But then all of a
yeah,
sudden now you're touring all the time, and that's why you
mm,
always hear these comedians
yeah,
start talking about airports and being
yep,
on the airplane and stuff like that. And then
yeah.
they get
The
past beyond
hotel.
that,
Yeah,
the hotel, exactly.
yeah,
And then they get beyond that and they run out of material. And then it's like, I'm just going to start talking about sex,
mm-hmm,
and it's like, you
mm-hmm,
can always tell when a comedian's jumping the shark and they've run out of
yeah,
material because they
yeah,
always go there.
yeah,
But the same thing with musicians, though. It's like
yeah.
you just
That's
go on
true.
this, you start off and the world is your pal, is your
Oyster.
oyster. Well, yeah, I was gonna say,
Is that the phrase? Is
I
that
think
the
that's
saying?
that's the phrase, but no, I was gonna say it's canvas. My goodness, holy, it's been a long day. I'm sorry. But the world is your
It
canvas,
has.
and so you can just paint whatever you want and go back and touch this up
Yeah.
and touch that up and take a year and look at that. And you have all this time to do it. But then, like you said, it's like the next record is like, okay, we want a better picture than that one, and
Yeah.
you have just a month to do it, get
Yeah.
going. And so
And
it's very, very rare for any, you know musician, let alone a whole entire band where you have different elements of every single person and
mm,
experience and chemistry to come in there and continue to do that and or do it better.
yeah.
And so coming full circle, but when I was talking about Pearl Jam, the other band that I was bringing up in there in the conversation I was having is Limp Bizkit. And
Mm,
I
yeah.
feel like Limp Bizkit is one of the rare ones who they can still put out good hits. They can still, I think, their last album still sucks. That's what it's called. It
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah.
I think the first half of the record is really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's an
Limp
amplifying moment
Biscuit.
of Limp Bizkit again. And
Yeah.
the second part of the album, to me, I'm not going to say it's bad, but it's different. It's almost
Yeah.
grunge,
Yeah.
but either which way, it's
Yeah.
it's the same members.
Mm,
Even though they had Mikey for a little bit on one record, but they're still able to pop out, some
yeah.
good stuff, and they know their sound. They know what it takes to write a good hit, and they do
Mm.
it, and they do it well. But
And you make a good point there too when you said their sound. And I think that a lot of bands don't really find their sound. They're just
mhm,
kind of mimicking what they're seeing, and,
yeah,
and some people are like, well, art is a reflection of the world around you. It's like, well, sort of, but it also comes from inside too. And when you can find your sound and you can hone in on that, some bands are good at that, like Limp Bizkit, and some aren't. Those tend to be your game changer
right,
type of bands. the Limp Bizkits, the Corn of the world, the Metallicas, the Panteras, they know what their sound is, they know where their lane's at, and they just hit the gas,
Yeah.
and they're able to do that and be successful. But when you're just trying to kind of, I don't want to say copy a sound, but kind of mimic what's already out there and is successful, yeah, you're probably not going to get very far. And I see it time and time again, in the recent past, with kind of people in my orbit. They'll have a record deal and then they won't have a record deal. And then, they're trying to sound like this band and now they're trying to sound like that band. And now they need
Right.
to get a little heavier because they need some credibility, but then they're going to do this. It's like, come on,
Right.
we're not stupid. We're
You're
not
exactly
stupid.
right. And that's such a good point because um yeah, having that particular sound, you just got to keep riding it out. If you believe in it, you just keep going until somebody else believes in it too.
Yeah.
Don't be a chameleon to try to latch onto this or latch onto that and try to be something else. And I think you know but I don't think there's any reason a person can't continue to try to explore different colors, what I'm saying,
Sure.
within their means and within who they are and expressing who they are. But if you like there's some people like, say, Stained or whatever, and all of a sudden he just goes full country, and it's like, well,
Mm,
good for
yeah.
you, whatever, do your thing, but like I think of like our past, our experiences, like we were
Yeah.
genuinely trying different elements and adding more and more and more, and we weren't trying to be something, though. It was just like, let's add some keyboards here. Let's add some this and let's add some
Yeah.
that, and it was like, some of our latest stuff that we didn't never actually put out, though, that we were demoing and everything. It was very electronic, very, you
Yeah.
know, yeah, it just a lot more elements, way more layered. And
I
I felt like that was the direction that we should have gone always. We just
yeah.
didn't have the means to do it. And we were really
Yeah.
resting into it very well.
Yeah. And back, during that time period, that was probably 20 some odd years ago.
Right.
Um, that type of equipment,
It was
that
hard
type
to
of stuff
get.
wasn't readily available
Yeah.
to us.
You could just
And
flip on a computer and there it is.
right.
You had to go get it and you had to
Right.
learn how
Well,
to play it.
I mean, like home recording wasn't really a thing yet.
Yeah.
And so it's like you had to find a studio or build your own studio, like an actual legit studio.
Right.
And, DAWs were very expensive. And I mean, you were looking at Pro Tools and Cubase. That was
Yep.
pretty much
That
what
was
you were
it.
looking at. And you
Yep.
better have a lot of money and a nice room to record in. So it wasn't, like it is today where you have different plugins and samples and, all
Yep.
these different things to where you can sound like you recorded in a professional studio in your home. That
Right.
didn't exist then. So yeah, you're absolutely correct. Like a lot of that stuff we just didn't have access to. Had we had access to it, it
Hmm.
probably would have had a very, very different sound. And I think now today musicians have access to literally anything that they
Yeah.
want from a sound perspective. And it's almost too much.
It
There's almost
definitely
too
can
many
be.
options.
It
So
definitely can be.
yeah, so it's like, okay, you have to be very conscious of that because you're starting to hear bands that are doing almost symphonic type of arrangements underneath essentially a new metal song. I
Right.
think that's great. I love that stuff, but I think that there's a point where it's too much.
Yeah.
And ha- have some of these bands reach that line? I think so. And it's going to kind of turn, kind of flip the scale there. And then there's some that I don't, they've overdone it from the beginning and I just don't like it,
Yeah.
and it's like everything's getting pushed to an extreme. And now I'm getting off on a tangent, but everything's getting pushed to an extreme, whether it's from a vocal perspective or, a speed and precision perspective, whatever it is, everything's getting pushed to this extreme. And it's kind of, I don't know, it just doesn't seem interesting anymore to me.
Well, exactly. And I think about this all the time, and I don't have the answer, obviously, but if you okay, so you think about like especially when new metal was coming out, man, it was like band after band after band after band. It was just
Yeah.
like boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, 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 boom. And it was such an exciting time to be a metal fan because there's just so much stuff coming out. And
Hmm.
when was the last time you've had that? I mean,
Yeah.
maybe metalcore right after, new metal was falling off.
Yeah.
Metalcore came out and there's a whole bunch of bands coming out. Excuse me, but you don't have that now. I mean, like seriously, think
Yeah.
about it. Excuse me. If you think about it, like all the bands that were big and growing big when we were doing our thing 20, 25 years ago, they're still the bands today. There's
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
big new artists that are coming out besides, a handful of them,
Right.
and I think it just like what we were talking about, it just comes down to the fact that I think that there's something about jamming, you know,
Yes.
a bunch of guys getting together and just jamming it out and coming up with something and then, driving on it
Yeah.
compared to sitting in front of a computer and being like, let's put this
Yeah.
in, let's try that, let's loop this, let's do that, let's layer this in,
Ye-
let's sample this. And I mean, some people are able to do it, obviously, but there's just
Yeah.
something about
And
just cooking up something.
yeah. And at the risk of getting in trouble, from my current group, that tends to work that way.
Right.
It's a very solitary creative process,
Right.
and that really drives me nuts because I see a band as kind of a science experiment, so to speak, like a
Sure.
creative science experiment. It's
Sure.
like, okay,
Yeah.
you have these 4, 5, 6, 9 elements, whatever, let's see what they can do together, because then it's going to be original, it's going to be new, it's going to be fresh. But if you have one person kind of in this creative box, by themselves, and they know specifically what they want, and then nobody else is going to be able to come in and play that stuff the way that that person wants it done, it's
Right.
virtually impossible. And I've made the argument that you have to give a little bit of leeway to the people involved to be able to make it theirs, to at
Right.
least to a certain extent, as opposed to just saying this is what it is. It's like that, there's a meme that's been flying around forever, and it's like these two guys at a kitchen table, right? And the one guy goes, it's like a guitar player and a bass player, and the guitar player goes to hand the bass player like the prepared bass lines, and he just throws it,
Yeah.
and I'm like, yes, that's absolutely true. I mean, that's exactly how I feel about it, because
Right.
I want to make my creative, or put my creative imprint on it. And anyways, yeah, I'm a little bit of a
No, you're
rant, but
you're right, and we can put a pin in it here in just a second,
I
but
mean, you get me going on that, and and
I
and
I
I'll
hear you,
I'll
bro.
get going on it.
But I think that's the difference between an artist and somebody who wants to be a musician.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, I was in high school band and choir and all these other things. So music's always been a part of my life. But it wasn't until I was, like I never wrote down a note. When I got out of high school and I was doing the gigs and everything. It's like I wrote down words, but you just didn't read music, like that off of sheets and
right,
stuff. And
right,
so, but that's again, you have the pop singers and stuff who technically, tend to have people write their songs for them, and then they learn how to do it, and then put their
yeah.
sound to it, and that's it. But yeah,
It's interesting how far it's the technology has come, and how it's impacted the creative
yeah,
process. But kind of going back to what we were talking about, on people's first records, it's like this only kind of amplifies that situation,
right,
where it's like, okay. But then again, a lot of bands, and I don't want to say that's everybody, because it's not. There's a lot of bands who, as they're touring, they will write their next record on the road.
sure,
There's a lot of bands who do that, and that's kind of their thing. And I, as a musician, prefer that scenario,
yeah,
a little bit more than you know kind of the alternative so to speak.
Right. And and again, it just this is where you hear a lot of I've listened to a whole bunch of other podcasts for the past like probably 3 or 4 years talking about this, is rock dead. I hate that term, it's so cliche and overly used. But the thing is like I don't think people genuinely mean is rock dead. I think what they're talking about is like there's just nothing really on fire right now. And we're so used to seeing, waves of it from
Yeah.
the 50s all the way up until probably mid 2000s, maybe late 2000s, and now
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
there's just nothing happening. And I think that's just the demise of technology today. We're so
Yeah.
used to just like I mean it's the microwave generation, like just throw something in the
Yeah.
microwave 30 seconds later, boom, you're done,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and there's just something about the process, and
Mhm.
without that process being in place,
Yeah.
there's just no
I,
life.
yeah. I think there's a handful of bands that are currently, not necessarily new metal bands, but they're operating within that framework, Gojira being one of them.
Yeah.
And they're
Yep.
willing to get outside of the box and they're willing to do things that um, are unsettling,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Mhm.
Not necessarily in a death metal or graphic type of way, but I remember I went to see Korn, Gojira, and Spirit Box, not that long ago, maybe 6 months ago, and it was right after the Olympics. And I remember, so Korn, massive band, it's an arena show, and Gojira and Spirit Box, clearly kind of the next generation
Sure.
of things. And I remember going to the restroom, and there was a guy next to me talking to another guy next to him, and the one guy says, "Who is this band? That this Gojira band or whatever?" And the one guy's like, "Oh, I think they're the ones that played at the Olympics." And I'm like, "Really? That
That's the
was how
only
you're
thing you.
connecting the dots here?" Um, but then again, that's kind of rad, because
Yeah.
if that's what got them a little
Yeah.
bit of notoriety, then, and I mean, they won a Grammy for that
Sure.
song.
Yeah.
So I do think that they're doing it that way, and I know that the brothers have a very you know interesting way of working, and I mean I mean Pantera, Van Halen, there's
Sure.
something there with the brother
Yep.
scenario, but
Absolutely.
I think that you have to find that type of relationship with different musicians to where it is something that's totally new.
You do, and that's the thing. And again, talking about like the chemical nature of everything as well. So that's how I was doing it before you and I met. I was
Mhm.
with my brother, and
Yeah. Oh, that's
and
right.
it,
Yeah.
yeah, and so we were in 3 bands together, and it was just I'm writing this out with them, ride or die. Here we go,
Yeah.
and so it was really hard for me
And I
when
stole you
ult
away from him.
yeah, well, yeah, no, yeah, exactly. No, but it was just ultimately the way that our last band ended was, we just weren't feeling it anymore with the rest of the band members and stuff.
Yeah.
And uh and he was married and had kids and stuff, and I don't think the rest of us were. And he was just like, I just don't think I can do this anymore. I just want to be a dad. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I respect that. And
Fair
so
enough.
just kind of hung everything up, and not all the rest of the band was happy with it, but it is what it is. But then, so then I
Yeah.
tried to hang it up too, and I was like, man, I just can't do this. And then, long story short, we ran into each other the way that we ran
Right.
into each other, and so it was very difficult for me because I had gone probably 6 years, 7 years, something like that, with only being with my brother and only writing
Yeah.
with him, and we just had a connection, dude, from
Yeah.
being toddlers together to
Right.
like we just knew what we were doing, and we would write some songs based off of my lyrics and some songs based off of his guitar, and I'd write lyrics to it. So we were just so you know intertwined like that we could just had this weird writing ability.
Yeah.
But then like I meet up with our band, with you guys and stuff. And it was like, oh my gosh, man, this is crazy. I've never
Yeah.
had to write this way before. And it
Little,
was a
yeah, different.
different chemical balance, and it was something I had to
Yeah.
get used to. And it was amazing. It was awesome. Very
Yeah.
exhilarating. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just something about being with your brothers though. And that's cool
Yeah.
about Gojira, you know,
Yeah. I thought
but
so. And there's kind of that, you know, not the same type of connection with Spirit Box, but she's married to the guitar player, so
correct.
there's like that relationship, but ultimately I think it comes down to you really have to have that connection with the people that you're writing with and playing with for it to really kind of translate and kind of transcend, I suppose.
Yeah. Yep, for
So
sure.
yeah.
Cool. Well, hey, the Union
Awesome.
Underground.
Yeah, yeah, right. Who knew the Union Underground was going to
45 minutes ago, we were talking
spark
about
that
that.
conversation, that deep of a conversation that
That's right.
was.
No, that's what's fun though. That's what's fun about music in general is just, that's what I love about, our relationship and just our experience and being together and but music in general is like I'm sure there's people sitting down who could just go deep about country music and like, oh,
Oh,
remember
for sure.
this, remember
Oh, for
that,
sure.
and it's just that's what's fun about it.
Yeah.
It's time stamps and history and it's
Yeah.
emotions laid on a record and people get to
Yeah.
enjoy it and induce it the way the way that they want to and they have their own perspectives and people love to talk about it. We're just a bunch of brains in these bodies and
Exactly.
we have our own way of experiencing it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
cool. All right,
Awesome,
brother.
man. Cool.
Fun
Good
times.
stuff.
Until next time.
Sounds good, bro.